All right, good morning, everyone. We thank you all for your patience. I know when you came in today, you were probably expecting all of the systems to be back online, but we felt that it was necessary to keep the family portal down and and the provider portal down while we're looking at the data. And Rob is going to get into that, and so I'll just go ahead and let you get into that right now.
Yes, good morning. So the team has worked over the holiday to make some data changes. Obviously, that there are some issues that we needed to address, and we prioritized those things into several buckets. Number one, child data and parent data that was mismatched. We also wanted to look at data that was showing up in the wrong coalition, and then we had some other issues like stale data or demographics being missing. So we'll address those things at a later time, but the first two items are very critical. We wanted to correct any mismatched data, and we also wanted to ensure that coalitions were only looking at their coalition's data. So there was a huge effort yesterday to pull back some of that information and do some deletes. And what we've done is we've created a report that kind of describes those areas that we've worked on. So the buckets are this. We deleted some data on Tuesday, and you'll see that information in the status column on this document, and I'll tell you where that document resides here in just a second. You'll also see data that we deleted yesterday. There will be some data items that we assumed are correct, but please validate that as well. And then there's going to be a status that we need you to review because we were not sure what to do with those records. And you can tell us to either keep that record or delete that record. So what we've done is we created these reports for every coalition, and we placed them out on SharePoint in the coalition document exchange. And then you navigate to the EFS Modernization project, and you should see a report generated for every coalition on, it's called your coalition's name, migration, and then yesterday's date, July 4th. So happy Independence Day, by the way.
So Rob, and so just to clarify, we sent a separate email this morning that went to all of the representatives that are on the transition planning work group, rather than send the details out to everybody on this entire group, so that we could ensure that we have the right people going to pull down this file. So the instructions, if you're listening to Rob speak and wondering where all these instructions are, that did go to the particular representative from each person's coalition that should be able to access that file. So if for some reason you're on that group and you didn't get the information, you can shoot us an email. But did just want to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. And also, we need feedback on that document. So it's not just a document we need you to review. There's homework on that record. We need you to go and review those and let us know what you want to do with those records, whether we're going to keep them or whether we're going to delete them. So that is the task for today, and until we are able to address some of those records, we kind of want to keep the family portal down and the provider portal down until we're able to make an assessment on that document. So that is critical item number one. And then I guess that's going to bring up the next question.
Yeah, so the next question, number three, we're going to get is, what do we do with the families and the providers while the system is down? I've got Rodney here.
Yeah, I really do apologize for the inconvenience on this. The primary goal is to keep the children in care. So so essentially do what you need to do to make that occur. So it unfortunately requires that you document on paper or document in some way outside of the system in the changes that pop up, and then at a later date go back in and revise the case notes in the file to be more accurate. That's unfortunately, that's what we need you to do. And I appreciate the flexibility and grace in all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Yes, and if by chance we get all of the files reviewed today, then we can bring the system back up later today. So that's just kind of what we're seeing. It depends on, I mean, obviously the most important thing is that we're not exposing bad data. So that's the number one goal, as Rob mentioned earlier. So once you review that and we have confirmation from each coalition, we can bring the other sides of the system back up. We want to just quickly show you, we've got here on number 4 on the agenda. And by the way, I know this wasn't in the meeting invitation, but it is over here in your handout. You can pull up the agenda from there if you need to. These are the key items that we have in progress, that we have developers working on now. Eligibility server errors. I know we got a report from ELC of Polk. Bernie, if you're out there, I know you were having a lot of those, so we're looking at that right now, and these other things that you can see that are on this list. Also, we were going to show a demo today of a couple of items, but I think what we'll do is we'll save that for tomorrow, but we did want to address it. So we're getting a lot of reports to the service desk of redetermination errors and unable to enroll errors. We feel like a lot of these are probably just user error training, need a little bit more guidance on. And so, like if the case is in a coalition reviewing state, some people aren't sure what to do with it. So we will do a demo tomorrow to walk you through that so you can see how to handle those. Also, the other question we've been getting a lot is about, you know, we've got new statuses. So waiting list, it used to say waiting, and I guess now it says active. We mean our application is active. So, you know, I think parents are getting confused a bit, thinking that, oh, I'm going to be served now. So we will provide a matrix of what those new statuses are, so you can see how they compare to the old statuses. Anything you want to add to that, Nilesh?
I finalized that document this morning.
Okay.
It's under review, so we should have that out shortly.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Nilesh. And again, also, we are working on wrapping up these user guides too, that I think will help a lot of you. Okay, so that's it for our agenda. We're going to look at some of the questions that are rolling in, and just want to reiterate a couple of things with questions that are coming in, not only on these calls, but to the service desk. You know, again, a couple of things. One, please try to funnel your questions and information through one person at your coalition as much as possible. As you can imagine, we're getting flooded with questions, and it helps us to serve you better if we've got the information coming in through less people. The other thing is, please, the items that you're sending us questions either on these calls or to the service desk, please try to limit those things right now to the items that are critical. If there are things that you can hold on that are enhancements or something like that that are more like low priority, if you could please wait on those. Obviously, that too will help us to get to the critical items more quickly. Yes, and also when you're sending in those service desk tickets, it's so helpful to send your steps to reproduce. We don't want you sending, we want you to send screenshots, but we want you to be careful when you're sending screenshots through email that it doesn't have child data on it or any, you know, personal identifying information on those screenshots. So just think about that before you send us a screenshot. But steps to reproduce are very important, and if you can give us an ID to look at.
Describe what they were trying to do.
And describe what either you as a coalition user or the family was trying to do.
Yes, just to reiterate, IDs are the best thing you can give us, like the confirmation numbers, the EV numbers, the household numbers. We can do a lot with those numbers, but we don't want to send children's names or date of birth through these screenshots. So give us the numbers, and then we have all the information from here.
Okay, and thank you, Nilesh. And another, just briefly before we get into questions, a big thank you to Jose Abreu from Palm Beach and Leisha Bookbinder from ELC of Lake and Nancy Metzger from ELC of Hillsborough, who spent their 4th of July holiday working with us on some of the data review. So we thank you all very much. And I know there were a few other folks too who were sending us files yesterday. So again, thank you for all your help and understanding as we go through this transition. All right, and we're just going to pull over. We're going to start looking at the questions. Again, I'm going to try to limit. We're going to respond to the ones that are most critical. And I'm going to just put the phone on mute for a second as we look at these questions and determine a response before we reply. All right, we have a good question about staff not being able to verify data due to missing DBK and SR program menus in the EFS mod. We think that that's probably a permissions issue. So if you can go in and check, the permission group of that individual to make sure that they have DBK and or SR admin functions, then they should be able to review the data. You didn't lose audio. We're still looking at the questions. We're just, again, trying to look at the most critical ones. If they're not critical, we will email you later on those. All right, again, since we cannot complete redeterminations in EFS mod, can we extend the redetermination date for families? How long should we extend the date? Where should we complete redetermination? Mod or legacy?
Yeah.
So if you're not able to modify that record or you run into an error in the mod system, we kind of want you to continue, as Rodney stated earlier, to work a paper process until the system comes fully live. So doing things in the legacy system for SR, we're not going to try to attempt another migration. So you could use legacy, I guess, for your own benefit to remember things, but we're not going to do a migration from legacy again. So I'm not sure that's what you want to do. For SR, it would almost be better if you do the paper process and hold off until we're ready to turn the family side back on.
Also, to add to that, please note that we have went ahead and put families that are up to, I believe it's 815 in the redetermination setting. So their process is going to be redetermination. So and we also went ahead and set up their next authorization period. So all you would have to do is leave it the way it is. Our system is already detecting them as being successfully being determined. All you would need to do is switch it to active or switch it to inactive if they're no longer eligible for services. So we've already set that up to 815, and we should have this fixed by then. If not, we'll talk about extending it even further.
Rob, if I could just also reinforce that when they're doing that paper process, make sure you're doing a case note as well, that this is what's going on. And so you'll have something to come back to you later for reference purposes.
Yeah, you absolutely still have access. Coalition Services portal is up. You still have access to be able to put a case note on records if you need to. We have a question about, can we get the Migrations Mod 3.0 data source updated?
Yeah, so that is the report that we put out there on Tuesday for you to allow you to pull those records. We're working on updating that to include some of the new filters that we worked on yesterday. We just haven't had a chance to get a developer assigned to that. So the report that is critical right now are the reports that we put out on SharePoint. So you should have all the information if you go to that SharePoint record, but we will update those two new reports that we added on Tuesday.
If they want it, we're going to try to put them back, the ones correctly, but they're gone.
So we have a question about, do you have suggestions for the best way to validate the assumed successful and deleted records on the list we are looking at today?
So you would validate the assumed successful records against your legacy data, and you can run a report from that. The deleted records, we deleted them. You don't have to validate them, but if you think that we deleted something incorrectly, please put a note on there and send it back to us.
And all of those have to be all of the deleted ones will be re-added incorrectly. Those were incorrect batches. So we know those are enrollments that have been dropped, but they were mismatched. So each person's enrollment is going to be less than their total amount.
Yes. So just to qualify that, and I don't know if we've said that yet, but Rodney sent out an email yesterday that said we had some records that we pulled back. There are about 11,000 records that we still have to migrate in. So you will be missing some data initially, but we're working throughout the day to get that put back in.
All right, the question is, please explain how we can see more than 1,000 children. Right now, as a list, we are limited. Are we doing something wrong? Due to performance for the system, we have to limit it to a certain size, so it is limited in the search results to 1,000 children, but you can pull that into a report, and the reports that you're looking at will show all of your children. So it's just when you're doing looking at the work queues, all work queues are going to have
it's a limit, so it doesn't grab all of your records.
Thank you. Once we have coalition responses for the spreadsheet, where should we upload or who should we send the information to? We want you to upload the document back on the document exchange location on the coalition zone, and we will get an email notification once you have done that. Thank you. And we have a question about not being able to see the enrollment if the case is in coalition reviewing. The buttons for enrollment and eligibility are not available.
That's correct. Please keep in mind that when we migrated these enrollments, we went ahead and threw it in a coalition reviewing state. We did not put it in an active state. So you as a coalition, as you are processing these one by one, family by family, you can set them to active. And when you set them to active, that's when you're saying, okay, this household is good to go, but what you need to do is put it in active so you have access to those eligibility buttons and enrollment buttons. So I know you're doing the redetermination offline, so you already know they've either passed or didn't pass their redetermination. So just set them to active. Everything should be set up so you can go ahead and fill out all the information you need to fill out and then set up their eligibility assignment and their enrollment for their next authorization.
Thank you, Nilesh. All right, this is a good question. Families that are due to redetermine in July, were their notification emails successfully sent? Is there documentation in EFS Mod that the emails were sent? No. The answer to that question is no. They have not been sent yet from the EFS Mod system. And while we're still trying to stabilize the data, we think it would be a good idea for the month of July if you send those out separately.
Yes, again, the primary goal is to keep the children in care. You aren't going to get a monitoring finding if the family is in care and an extra week or three. The big goal is to just keep things going on.
Thank you. When will the provider transfer SR enrollments be up and running? In the interim, can we defer to EFS Legacy to process our pending transfers? So we'll answer this question again.
I worked with a staff member on Thursday, and we identified that some of these enrollment issues were due to not correctly setting up the eligibility assignment beforehand. So what you need to do is you need to access the eligibility assignment and make sure that all the required fields are filled out, and make sure that the eligibility start and end dates reflect what is in the standard codes for that particular eligibility group and billing code. So, for example, if it's a BG8 econ, then it's going to be a 12-month period. If it's a, let's say, a BG1, I think it's a 13R, 14R, that's a 6-month authorization. We are not predefining that. We didn't have time to get that in there. You would actually need to make sure that you are setting these dates according to what the standard codes allow. So once you do that, and once you successfully save that eligibility assignments, then the enrollments will start working.
Okay, thank you, Nilesh. Go ahead, Rodney.
I think that you should reinforce the point that change is that
Yes.
legacy are not going to be imported. So.
Right. So again, in the interim, the second part of that question was, in the interim, can we defer to EFS Legacy to process our pending transfers? If it makes you feel good to be able to do it in Legacy for the time being, you can, but with strong caution that we are not doing another migration into EFS Modernization with this information.
So you would have to work in both systems. Basically, whatever you do in your legacy will have to be done in Modernization, or it won't be, you won't have it moving forward. So,
right.
Yes. And I do want to make a clarifying statement about the deleted items on that worksheet. We are going to continue to work on those items. So you're missing some items, but before we actually make those changes, we will send out another document for coalitions to review, to approve that this is what our next, the next phase of those 11,000 records are going to look like when we do another migration. So you'll have an opportunity to view that information before we actually push the go button.
Okay, next question is, should we be seeing families today and completing their paperwork via the Coalition Services portal, since they can't access their family portal account, or hold off processing any family paperwork until all systems are online?
We really want you guys to decide that at the local level. I think that you guys are best positioned to see how to accommodate this disruption, and so I prefer not to set some top-down mandate. I'd rather you feel locally that you can keep going, then keep going. If you can't, then once again, our focus is on keeping these kids in care, and we aren't going to ding you for redetermination late during this time period.
Thank you, Rodney. Transfers. During this transition, will we be able to backdate transfer start dates?
So any enrollment that is within an eligibility assignment, you can set those dates up. So theoretically, when you say the anticipated start date is going to be July 1st, then once that is in effect, then that's when the provider should be doing attendance for. So if you're putting in a past date, as long as that date is not already being used with the same provider, then you should be good to go. If that's not the case, please put in a ticket, and we'll take a look at that for you.
Okay. Thank you, Nilesh. Continuing to get runtime error when clicking on ED for a child.
So we know that you will run into some server runtime errors. Initially, we've identified what some of the problems are with that. A lot of it has to do with the local enrollment. So we're addressing that. We're trying to get a fix in as quickly as possible. There may be some additional items that we haven't discovered yet, but we think so far that that's what the problem is, and we'll try to get that in today or tomorrow.
Okay, this is a good topic to note for everyone. So 3.0 changed the permissions for users. It is advisable for everyone to check user permissions, yes. So I think it set everyone to a default. Those of you that are coalition admins, if you go into your managed users and just click search, it'll pull up all of your users in your coalition. You may have to look at them and check to verify that their permissions group is correct and what it should be to give them the ability to do the things that they should be able to do.
They're not defaulted
And Amy, that's a reason why the assigned counselors weren't showing up. The coalitions need to go back to those managed accounts for their coalition staff and turn those permissions on for them.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay. Okay, we had let's see, hold on just a second.
Yeah, don't need to answer that.
Okay, the question is, should we wait until the local funding setup feature is completed prior to creating CCEP participant records? And yes, that is a good idea. And I think that's close to being ready, that feature. All right, we have a question about the report on SharePoint, that it would be more useful with provider data.
We can take a look to see if we can modify that quickly and get that out. We'll do that for one coalition, I guess, if you need.
But it's not validating the provider.
That's correct. We'll take a look at that, Mike. We'll take a look at that and get back to you.
Okay, the question is, on the report sent this morning, if the legacy and mod parents are not the same, how can the record be assumed successful? So again, the reason why we want you to look at the report is to verify and validate what we're saying is true. So if you see a discrepancy, then we want you to note that.
And the deleted records aren't that they weren't. Causing another coalition to be bad.
Okay, so the question is, I'm going to try to join the Excel sheet in SharePoint with the migration data source in Tableau. I'm concerned that the 13-year-old still in service were deleted in mass.
Yeah, so that migration report that you're pulling from the system is going to be pretty static. In the deleted report that was added to SharePoint, you may have had some records that were valid records, but what the problem was is there could have been two records that was affecting another coalition, so we had to delete both the good and the bad record. So that was what we were saying earlier, that we may delete some records that you're going to get back, but we're going to need a day or two to put those back into the system.
Also, I'm sorry,
Go ahead,
the
Brad.
Tableau report was connected to the original migration that we did, so we might need to reconnect it to some different data today. Right? Yeah. So please ignore the Tableau migration report this morning while we connect to the right spot for today.
Okay, can we repeat that just in case people didn't hear that?
Yeah, so, okay, the question was about combining the Excel sheet with the Tableau report for migration. The migration report was done off a single table for the migration that happened the end of last week, beginning of this past week. So since another migration occurred over the past couple of days, correct, we need to connect that to the new migration table.
Okay, we got a question about, can we complete CCR&R listings in MOD now? And the answer is yes, you should now be able to go in and do the CCR&R provider listing. Yes.
So we have another question about the 1,000 record limit. So again, the limit is only on the search results page. You can still get that information from the SR verification report. In the event that you do have more than 1,000 records that you need to review. We threw that in kind of as a stopgap until we're able to fix the search results page. So we'll continue to work on that, and if you need some additional, specific information, we'll work with you individually to get you any report that you need.
And we will contact Paula Rollins after this call and make sure that we can get her where she needs to go on the coalition zone to find the report and kind of walk her through it.
Okay. There's a reported issue about the
Please try Control F5.
the user role edit button is not working. That could be a Control F5 issue, meaning if you hit Control F5, it'll refresh the data for you on the screen. We're trying to address some of those issues, but it sounds like you just found another one that we need to add to the list.
Yeah, we experienced this during UAT week. That may fix it. If it doesn't, please send us a ticket. We'll take a look at it closer.
Or Bernie, if you want to check that now and just write back if that worked or not. All right, the question is, should we have the ability to backdate CCAA enrollments for our BG1 families? We have not been able to successfully do so. Should we be able to have the ability to backdate CCAA enrollment?
So, were these migrated CCAAs, or are they coming from the intake form today? So, essentially, if they're coming from the intake form, it's going to go ahead and create the eligibility assignment based off of what you're stating the beginning and end date of the referral is. And then once you go into that eligibility assignment, you should be able to modify that to be what it needs to be. So you should have the ability to do it within reason. There's going to be logic to check to see, is there something else in place? Is there an active enrollment attached to it? All sorts of things. But if there's no enrollment attached to it, you haven't set it yet, you should be able to define it.
Our system allows for it.
Yeah, our system will allow it, yes.
Yeah, okay. Next question is, in legacy, a termination date can be removed as long as it hasn't been reimbursed. Is this the same in EFS Mod?
Currently, we are working on functionality to get that for you. It's going to be an undo process. So if you put a termination date and you need to revoke that and make it so it's not terminated anymore, we have a user story to work on that. But right now, for the time being, once you put in a termination date, the workaround would be you just keep extending that termination date. You would just go in there and hit end eligibility again, and then you can modify the termination date until we can actually give you the tool to get rid of that termination date.
Okay, thank you. All right, the question is, can you clarify that comment that the report we received this morning didn't contain any provider validation? None of the deleted were because providers didn't match, question mark. They were only matched to parents, question mark.
That's correct. We only deleted enrollments that were child-parent related, not provider related. So if you notice any mismatches there, please identify that as well.
Okay. For the deleted ones, we need to look them up and let you know to add them or keep them.
No. The deleted ones, we will be providing a new match and a list before we insert them back in. We don't need verification on the deleted. You'll be given another report when the deleteds are coming back through the system. So that's just in case you're looking for one of your children and you don't find it. If it's on the deleted list, it's because we're still working that particular enrollment from Legacy. The ones that we do need clarification on are the ones that say need to verify these for keep or delete.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're getting a lot of questions about can we add one more column? Can we add one more column to include different data? I'm going to let Rob speak to that.
Yeah, this is for the report that we put out there on SharePoint. We can continue to do that, but it is going to slow the process down if we have to go and join, multiple tables in order to add these one column. So if it's critical, and yes, we can add that. But if it's just a nice to have, we would prefer not to have to modify that too much. But if it's critical in order for you to do your assessment, then we can do that.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, so another question about, we've received some of these, that there's no counselors in drop-down for Manatee. Again, that is, you need to go in and look at your permissions for your staff first before you can set those up. And Andrea, do you want to elaborate on that?
The coalition users, what I'm seeing in on the page and in the tables, the coalition users, we have all these new kind of permission groups, and right now they have nothing selected. So the recommendation would be to go to your account management, pull up all your users for your coalition, touch every single one of them, and turn on permissions, especially those coalition users, and just then refresh and see if that will pick them up in the assigned counselor. And if not, just follow back up with us, and we'll keep looking at that.
Okay, thank you, Andrea.
Hello, this is Brad. Diana and I just met and talked over the migration report, and I'm adding in more demographics, and it'll be ready within 30 minutes.
This is for the provider listing?
No, provider listing is all good.
Okay.
This is for the migration report that people were asking about on Tableau. So the report that Diane sent will also be in Tableau in the same spot that you've been looking at the migrated report.
So then it would have the providers, and it would have the Social Security for the child, and all of the data that you had in the other one. You'll also have the statuses of, we assume it's correct, we think we were deleted on this day, we were deleted on that day, or need to check. So you should be able to go to one source and be able to see all that
See all of
data.
it all together, yeah. Give me about 20 to 30 minutes, it'll be in there. Okay, perfect.
Okay, next question, when will we have the ability to backdate a waiting list date? So again, if this is due to this transition and the system being down, please put a case note in that record, and then afterwards just keep a list of these that you need us to do data fixes on, and you can send that in a service desk ticket sometime next week. All right, we have a question about for CCR&R providers search in Miami-Dade. It shows a total of 889 providers, and then they have more than 1,000. So if you go in and do the search, you want to make sure that you're not filtering on anything to be able to show all of your providers. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, at this point we built it so it's automatically already filtering. So even the time ranges that are in there, when you bring it up, that's already filtering your result. It's possible to stick a button on there that says, let me see everybody, if we want to do that. Or give them a total count of what's in there. Sure.
Okay, and that would probably be good.
Help them feel better, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we'll do something that lets you see all with no filter. One of the critical items that we were working on for hot fix was the parent fees assessment, and that I think is almost ready, and we may be able to get that into a push possibly later tonight. We'll have to look at our items, and we'll be able to give an update on what will go into that list a little bit later on. So the question is, we also need to verify assumed successful question mark. I did notice EFS and portal addresses that were different on the list.
They are different. We didn't overlay.
So we didn't overlay. If something was already updated in EFS Mod, we didn't take it from EFS Legacy and lay it back over the data in EFS Mod.
Once we determine that the matches are good, if we want to do a refresh of the address, we can, but it's too dangerous to do that at the stage.
And there are some instances where the address coming over is because we couldn't match that record at all, meaning it would need to be updated in mod once the parent goes through a redetermination or something, or coalitions can make modifications to that.
Okay. All right, so just again, the question about needing to verify assumed successful and noticing that the addresses are different. So if you notice an address is less updated in EFS Mod than it is in EFS Legacy, if you have the ability, then you can make that update in EFS Mod yourself. That's not something that you have to send to us to do if you have the ability to do it from the coalition portal.
And in fact, we did none of those updates. They will be different if they were modified at different times, and we don't know which one is correct. So we're not assuming that they're the same. They need to look at them, and if they're different households, even though they look like they're the same household, but they have different addresses, then they need to say, no, this is not the same household. What we're trying to do is eliminate mismatches of households, not update the addresses.
Right, and if you haven't, you will run into this if you haven't been updating EFS Mod and Legacy at the same time when you're editing a record. Okay, again, please confirm the extensions can apply to all SR billing groups that could be negatively impacted by the system transition, not just BGH or CCPPs. Yes, that is correct.
Yes, that's certainly, yes, I mean, we are going to accommodate these sorts of things, and I know it might not just be the extension date, it might be some other things too, but we are going to be as we are going to be flexible about it.
Okay, thank you, Rodney.
We had another question about adding additional fields on that report. So the report, we're not going to worry about modifying that SharePoint report. What Brad is doing is he's working on Tableau, so you'll have more real-time information, and you'll have additional fields that will be associated with that report.
Okay. We had a comment that our staff says CCR in our listing is working, but very slow to choose selections and return results.
I need to extract today. The live connection right now, we're going to extract.
Okay, so right now it's a live connection, and so that's why it's slow. Brad is working on an extract, so that'll speed things up.
Yeah, it's got two times in between.
All right, another question. We just want to ensure we are on the same page. We have only 46 cases under needs review or keep or delete. Does this mean we only need to review those cases?
It's the ones that I am most concerned about.
Yeah, those are the ones that we're most concerned about, but we want you to verify everything that's on the list.
Assumed successful spot check.
Yes, spot check, you're assumed successful. All right, on the Broward Migration Report, there are about 146 addresses that are showing up blank in EFS Mod. So note those in your results that you sent back up to us. You could, and you don't have to put the right one necessarily, but just make a note. Okay, we had one more question about adding provider to the report on SharePoint. So I think Rob's got a collection of all of the information about adding some additional columns, so we are taking a look at that. That is actually the last question that has come in. So what we're going to do briefly is I think there's a couple of things that our team wanted to show you. One is with the permissions, I believe, and the other one is a couple of reports. So we'll see who wants to go. Well, Andrea's going to show some reports. So I'm going to just, I'm going to make her the presenter here.
Do you also want to do permissions?
I can do permissions too. You could do it.
Do that, do that.
Let me get to the right. What's the beginning of the URL?
I think I've been on mute, so I don't know that you just did. Okay.
Is it given to you?
Yes. Okay, I did want to show a couple of updates. Brad has been working on these Tableau reports. So in the Mod 3.0 folder, it was asked if we could have a vendor ID report. So that is here. He has to just point it to the production data. So what I'm going to show you is data that we've created in one of our test environments. So he'll get that pointed to the right place probably by this afternoon. But you can see here, oh, there it is. So anything that got created, it tells you here's the provider, the funding type, what the ID was, the description, and so forth. So the vendor ID report is yours momentarily. We also talked about having a report to show VBK Classroom. And so here's the VBK Classroom report. And again, this is pointing to our test data, so you've got to just redirect it to production. But here are the VBK providers. It has the ID, the type. It has the status of their VBK app, the program year for it. Here's the classes, the class full name, the program type, the class start date, the end date, and what that max class size is. It doesn't have the enrollment wrapped into this. This is to serve the purpose of, you know, what classes does the provider have created. The other report that he worked on real quick for you guys is enrollment. And this is the one that would show you what the enrollments are for the VBK provider or the SR provider. So if you go to the side here, you've got the two toggle things. Hold on, I don't know if that might be production. I'm going to exit out of there real quick. But you saw there's the three reports. It's an enrollment report, a vendor ID report, and the VBK Classroom report. So he'll have those up working for you guys probably this afternoon. Okay, and then I can show you permissions, but not in that environment. Let me see here.
Can y'all see
Let's see here. So this is our test environment.
I see Andrew's screen.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is our test environment. Let me just go to admin functions, account, coalition, and manage. And if I just hit search, I should get all of the accounts that are created for my coalition. And what you want to do for these coalition users, you want to click on edit, and you can see how they have no permissions right now. So you want to go ahead and turn on some things for them. And this, we believe, is why those assigned counselors weren't showing up. So make sure your coalition user has appropriate permission groups turned on and click save.
And you may want to scroll down and double check to see if the assigned counselor one was selected. But as long as that final row at the very end says, if you can click edit again, please. Yeah,
I'm going to turn on SR processes and then go down.
Yes. So that final column on the far right is the effective permissions that you want to have. So if there's a check mark there, then they have that permission.
I'm looking for this. Is there a specific one for assigned counselor? I think it's assigned counselor. It's just within the SR process.
Yep.
So if I check off SR processes only, you can see where they now can view VBK and SR, but they can also manage SR applications.
Yeah.
Oh, that might not be there. Should be there. But anyhow, this is what we were talking about. We want you to go in and check those permissions for each of your users. If you still have any issues, let me know. And for Bernie, I did refresh yours and Melissa's admin accounts because you said the edit button didn't even work for you. So I did refresh your 2 accounts, so maybe that might address your issue. All right. There's one more thing I can touch on since I have the microphone here. If you do a VPK search, some people were reporting that they were seeing counties that didn't belong to them. Like I'm signed in as a Big Bend coalition, but yet I'm seeing Bay. We had revised the search to kind of show you across the state, statewide. I'm looking for, this child with this name. Are they in the VPK program? Are they in the SR program? So you are seeing some results here that are from other counties that are outside your coalition. But just so you know, if you click on that record and it doesn't belong to you, you still won't be able to access anything. We'll put a better message on there because it says your requested action has been performed. We could say something probably a little more accurate and say you don't have permission to access this record. But just so you know, if you use the VPK search and you're concerned about seeing these other counties, that's why. And you do not have access to them. So, okay? Who wants the screen back?
Also, Diane walked me through the spreadsheet that you guys used to review, so I should be able to provide some sort of guidance on how to read and work that spreadsheet.
Okay. I'm giving it back to you, Amy. Okay.
Yeah.
Migrated data report. Okay.
And Tableau.
All right, so again, we want to go back over the instructions on how to access the information and what you need to do for doing this data review, because we know we got some questions out there. So I've got this put up on the screen. Again, this is the email that was sent to the folks that were on the transition planning work group. This has got, all of the categories here. And it sounds like also there's some Tableau reports. So Nilesh, do you want to talk through this?
I believe that field, I think either the first or the second field, it may be different on Tableau report, but it's roughly the same. Assumed correct is what we feel is a solid match. Deleted is we are removing them with the intent to bring them back in later correctly. And need to verified are, we eyeballed it, we did our best guess with it, or I should say Diane did diligently. And you just need to go and work those where it says need to verify, keep, or delete. You need to either stamp them as keep or stamp them as delete. And then we'll be able to work it from there.
And when you delete them, it just means it comes back in with the other group.
Okay.
Because we have a group of deleted, and then we have the group of, we either keep them there because we think that they're valid, or you tell us to go ahead and add them to the delete group, and you'll see them come back in with the other load.
Right.
Again, nothing on the assumed is, we're not looking for updating parent names or children names. We're not looking at updating addresses. We're looking to see these are the same people.
Right. And then once we've matched that and they are the same people and you do need to make a correction, you can do that in the EV when it's available.
Okay. And then can you just clarify, so hold on just a second regarding the Tableau reports, but I want to make sure I'm asking the question right. All right, so just to clarify, the Tableau reports that you can look at also to compare the data, those are out on the Tableau site, Brad's Tableau site, so just to clarify that.
Right. And those are going to be the enhanced reports with the information that you requested, the extra information For example, the social security number and I think another item that I can't think of off the top of my head. So get with your Tableau contact at your coalition. It should help you locate this file if you need it. But I think those who are looking at the data have access to that already. So if you have any questions, let us know and we'll be able to assist you with that.
Okay. Okay. Yes, there's a question about can Tableau reports be downloaded? Yes, they can be downloaded. Each coalition's Tableau person should know how to do that. So we had a question about permissions again. So the question was, so specific permissions are functioning now on top of groups. We don't have the more detailed permissions ready. It's the same permissions that you had prior to the release of 3.0, but what happened was some of them, the permissions just defaulted to having less permissions than your users were used to. So that's where you want to go back in and take a look at your managed users and make sure that they are what they should be.
And as they become available, we will communicate that with you guys.
Again, the server error with the EVs, we are working on that. We have a developer that's on that, and that fix will hopefully happen later today. Question is, if we are putting on there as delete, do we need to tell you how to get them in correctly?
No, it would be a process of elimination at that point. So Diane already knows, you know, it's either one or the other. So if you're marking one as delete, we know which one to get in. That's a great question.
Okay. Okay, so this is another great question. Let us get this straight. We need to do the need to verify as a keep or delete immediately and work on the others later.
Yes. Correct. We're pretty confident in the other ones, but the ones that we are putting need to verify, those are the ones we cannot say that those are, well, we cannot make the decision on that.
The needs to verify was a human override. That's the reason they're going. The deleted were kicked out for mismatch between parent, child, and address, all three mismatched. The need to, the assumed correct had no mismatches from the computer standpoint, and the need to verify failed on the match, but most of the time it was with apostrophes and hyphens and spaces and shorter names and divorce names and a human has already looked at all the need to keep and delete and determined that it looks like it's the same record, so therefore why delete it if we're just going to add it right back? So if you'll just look at those and either concur with that decision to keep it or mark it for deletion.
Okay. Okay, so on the assumed correct ones, if you do want to look at those too. They might be the same child, but perhaps wrong household. For example, one household may have applied for VBK and the other for SR. So if you have something like that on your report, please just make a note on there so that we can see that note and what needs to happen with that. Again, yes, the 3.0 Tableau reports are downloadable. When a family recertifies and they go into the graduated phase out, are these forms part of EFS Mod? So we will have functionality to flag them, but there's no form for graduated phase out.
Yeah, graduated phase out is still under development. We're trying to establish a way so that you can adjust the co-payment and indicate that this adjustment is due to graduated phase out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nilesh. And again, so last thing, let's just recap on this data review again. So the first priority to look at is the need to verify if keep or delete. You also do want to look at your assumed corrects, because we do, just as another person just mentioned, they saw where they had a couple of households where children were in both.
Yeah.
And also Nancy from Hillsborough also said, you know, she has some that are not a match in the assumed correct. So do look at all of your data.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We've got about 3 more minutes here. What I'd like to do is, for those of you that are on the call and have not been able to locate your file, please put a note, type into the questions box right here so we know who we need to follow up with after this call. I have somebody from Gateway we will reach out to, as well as, I think Escambia has it, but we'll reach out to you, and also ELC of Polk. We're going to keep it open just a few more minutes in case somebody doesn't know where to go or needs further instruction. Okay, we are not seeing any more questions come in, and we don't have anyone else stating that they are unable to find or access the report. So we are going to go ahead and end the call. Again, we will be all sitting in a room looking at the service desk tickets that are coming in. We'll be watching for, Rob and I will be looking for emails to come in, letting us know that the reports, your data has been reviewed and you've updated you've uploaded your file. So again, we get an email notification when you upload your file. So we will be able to tell by that. We'll be looking at the service desk tickets. Again, please try to funnel as much as you can your service desk tickets through one representative. And also, if you have things that are not critical, please hold on those items for now. Please only send us the most critical items for review so that we can respond as quickly as we can. Thank you all, and we will be in touch probably later on in the day.